are exactly, and I'm privileged to be talking to an amazing young man. His name is Mika Shavala. He is absolutely passionate about the African people and the issues throughout Africa. Uh, he's going to talk to us about conversations for a better Africa. He's written an open letter to Emmanuel Macron, obviously the president of France. I'm just going to read the first paragraph and then we're going to get Mika to obviously respond. He says we need justice and we need it right now. Niger is the world's fourth largest uranium producer. Its uranium mines are mostly owned by French companies. Niger uranium produces 40% of France's electricity, while 86% of Niger people have no electricity. An imbalance yet once again, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, exactly what I touched in my previous interview with Professor Patrick Bond. And he goes on to say, your country has been exploiting Africa for a very long time, and you have been and developing because of Africa's resources. It's time to acknowledge that and treat Africa with respect, not only as equal partners, but as your savior. And that's a fact, says Mika Shavala. A very good morning. Welcome to the program.
Hey, good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Very strong words, which has been said with very strong conviction. Talk to us about what brought you to this point, about the organization you're involved in, and it's about time, and I agree with you 101%, that the colonial powers now have to give back what is owed to the countries that have exploited for years, hundreds and hundreds of years.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. You know, this had happened like a couple of weeks ago. It was, I guess it was like 3 weeks to 4 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. And it just happened because the people of Burkina Faso and Niger people, they were actually protesting against French troops in their country, you know. And during that event, like long story short, they killed 3 civilians, young people. Some, I think one of them was just 15 years old. And some of them, you know, they were there harmless. They were just defending their countries. They were telling French troops that, you know, we're not allowing you to come to our country. We need to see what you have in your vehicles. And during that incident, they killed 3 people. And we have been seeing these kind of events, you know, almost all the time throughout Africa. Our people being killed, right? If you go to abroad, I live abroad for 9 years. I've seen how Africans are treated outside of Africa. But this is happening right now inside the Africa, and mostly in Francophone, you know, West African countries here in Africa. And that's what brought me to write this letter, because we cannot be treated like this in our own country. And it's the time for Africans to take our stand, because this is our continent. And if you come, you want to cooperate with us, you want to work with us, then you must treat us with respect. You must respect what we have and, you know, who we really are. I've seen the statement that, you know, French government actually released after the death of those 3 people, and they say they were killed mistakenly. How can killing somebody be a mistake? And these are just numbers that we see and we know, but there's a lot of people who are dying in these regions and we don't have a number and we don't know, and nobody's talking about it. So I believe it's the time for African youth and Africans to actually stand up and to speak against this action. And, you know, the many people we have speaking about this, I think, you know, we might reach to the solution as soon as possible. So that's what, you know, encouraged me to write that letter to him. And I had to be very direct and I had to be very straight, because, you know, most of the time we sugarcoat things when we talk to somebody, but it cannot be right killing our people and trying to escape from that. We must take our stand.
Okay. Have you had a response, or do you hope to get a response? And before you do respond to me, let me just inform our viewers and our listeners that Mika Shavala is a podcaster and founder of Swahili Nation and One Africa. And you're discussing, obviously, the situation in Mali. But, of course, before the interview started, you and I had a brief chat, and you said that your voice is the voice of all of Africa. because
Yes.
all of Africa's people have been exploited for so long.
Mhm. Yes, exactly. Africa, we all know, like there is a history before colonialism, but most of things we know Africa after colonialism. That's what we have been taught in school. That's what we read in the books. But Africa before colonialism, it's basically one. Like all these borders we have in our continent, they were created by colonialists to separate us, to divide us, and to weakenize us, because unity is power. So they definitely like divide the continent, like a little piece of meat, in order to control it, in order to manage it, and in order to take advantage of it. So my message, or the message of One Africa, is to remind people that we are actually one, and we have the history of Africa before colonialism. And the sooner we realize that, I think the sooner we're gonna get to the point of unity again. But there's a lot of things that are dividing us, like all these borders, languages, religions, and all these different factors that, in fact, they're supposed to unite us and to bring us together to fight against all this colonial power that are still trying. Not really trying, but are still making their way into our beautiful continent and divide us. That's their rule,
So,
is to divide and rule. But we have to unite
absolutely.
and strive.
Absolutely. And we need to learn great lessons from them. We need to learn how they operate, and we need to replicate their operating style, not the negative operating style, but the positive. Let's take the positives out of that. But also, the other important thing is that you talk about borders. We are referring to the artificial borders that the colonialists created when they came to colonize and take over the African continent. So those are the borders you're referring to. You want to dispel all of those borders. Another important thing you raise is in the occupation tax your country imposes on your former colonies. Talk to us about that.
It's crazy that until this time, like as we are speaking right now, 14 African countries, Francophone West African countries, are still paying colonial tax to France. That is ridiculous. So
In this day
that's
and age.
yes, in this day of age. And that's one of the things that I was like, when you look at France, I wrote in my letter that 40% of electricity in France comes from Niger's uranium, and 86% of Niger people, they don't have electricity. For a long time, like France has been developing, has been improved, has been like, it's thriving actually. It's part of the, P5 countries. And that is because of all the resources that have been exploiting from the Western Africa. Right. And so it's crazy seeing that until right now, our people are working hard and they're still paying tax to the former colonial power, and that is France. So if Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, want to set a good standard, want to show difference, want to bring about change, then he has to take this down.
Another very serious point you raised in your letter to him is, take your troops out of our continent. We can still do business without your military wandering around our homes. In response or in defense or in justification of foreign troops on African soil, they can probably respond to you by saying it's because the African leaders are corrupt. We're trying to bring stability in Africa, and that's why the freedom fighters, or the people who are fighting for the rights of the African people, have asked us to come in and keep the peace. What would you respond? How would you respond to something like that?
It's crazy how things are happening like that. I mean, according to the question you asked me, that African problems should be solved by Africans. But sometimes it feels like Africa is a little kid who needs somebody to take care of all the time, right? If we have a strong African Union, and my message is I always address the African Union, that I think it's the time for us to start looking deep inside our issues and try to solve them on our own, because you cannot trust somebody who actually colonized you before and welcome him in your house, that always coming here to take care of me. No, he's not there to take care of you. He's there to take advantage of you, right? And that's what has been happening. We have like our foreign troops within Africa and we don't see change. Like, for example, French troops in Niger, in Mali, they've been there for a long time, but those are places that have been like dismantled for so long time. Just take an example. In the country of Djibouti, there is more than like there's close to 7 different foreign troops, like USA, China, Russia, and different, like 7 different of them. They are there. What are they doing there? Like it's a time for African Union, to realize that, and for all Africans, within the continent.
There is huge support for the people of Mali, and they took to the streets in their numbers to protest against France's treatment and occupation in their country. Do you think anything will come of it? And also, a question I did put to you earlier, which you haven't gotten around to answering yet. Have you had a response to your open letter to Emmanuel Macron?
I haven't had the response yet, but the time that I wrote, it was actually way before they announced to remove, the number of troops from. So like a couple weeks later, they kind of removed. So I was wondering if, like, maybe this letter has a little bit of impact, because I had to tag him everywhere on Instagram, on YouTube, on Twitter, and I had to ask people to reshare that letter and to tag him everywhere. So I'm not sure if he has seen it, but I haven't received any response from him. That's one thing. And what is going on in Mali, it's amazing. You're seeing Malians people taking a stand, because the sanction that has been imposed on Mali, it's not just against the government of Mali, but it's against the innocent people, civilians people. They're the one who are suffering. They're the one who are dying, right? So it's the time for us to rethink all these sanctions and all these ways that we want to teach. We want to tell them the lesson that, okay, this is what you should do. But people of Mali, they are outside supporting the current regime they have. I think it's the time for us to respect what people of Mali want and actually trying to do what they want. But it feels like ECOWAS is not really listening to what people want. It's not really listening what Malian people want, because they're the ones that have been losing, dying for years. For years they've been losing, for years have been dying. So I see a very significant move in Mali country right now. And the youth, people, as long as they're out, they're protesting peacefully, wanting a change in their country, man, the change will come. Sooner or later,
Okay.
we have seen it in Sudan.
Give us context of the situation in Mali. What's the situation there? Why have the people taken to the streets?
So the situation there is that, there were an agreement before between the Mali current regime, that is led by a military regime, and ECOWAS. They have agreed to do an election on February before. But then right now, the regime in Mali, they changed. They say, you know what, we're not going to do election on February. We're gonna do election after 5 years. Again, I don't support that, because I think we should stand on our agreements. When we have agreements, then we should keep that. But there's a legitimate reason behind this why they don't want to carry on the election in February. And one of the reasons is because a lot of places in Mali have been occupied by terrorist groups. So if they go through the election on February, then majority of people in Mali, they're not going to be able to vote for their own government. So they don't see the point of having election at this time. So after that, ECOWAS, they put sanction on Mali, saying that, you know what, you guys are not keeping up on your promise. 5 years, no, we are putting this sanction on you guys. Kind of like to convince them to change their decision. But I think there's a better way to do this. There's a better way to negotiate this for the sake of people. For the sake of people. Yes, they changed their stand and they gave their reasons, but why don't we sit down and negotiate and compromise the time that you guys, okay, if you cannot do on February, then we're giving you maybe 1 year, or we're giving you 5 months, or giving you this amount of time, but it cannot be 5 years or something like that. We can actually negotiate instead of stepping out and putting on sanction, just like what the Westerners has always been doing to Africa. Why do we acting like Westerners countries? Why do we treat our brothers and sisters like the same way that colonialists have been treating us? People of Mali deserve justice. People of Mali deserve to live in peaceful life. But right now, there's no plan going to Mali or coming out of Mali. How are they going to do business? How are they going to live? How are they going to survive every single day if you have all this strong economic and, whatever sanction that you have on them?
Okay, Mika, my final question to you would be that obviously foreign powers, foreign presence, European presence in many parts of Africa would be justified by the fact that they have been called in by the leaders of those specific countries as
Yeah.
either peacekeepers or nation builders or support for the country's stability. And they'll give you a whole host of reasons for why they have foreign presence in the specific countries. And they may just dismiss the issues that you, One Africa, and your group come up with. How are you going to contend with that? Do you have a loud enough voice to be able to fight all of those leaders that are in the pockets of foreign governments?
It's an amazing question, by the way. My message has always been One Africa, because I remember the founding father of Tanzania, Julius Kambarage Nyerere. He once said that unity will not make us rich, but it will make it difficult for outsiders or enemies to mistreat, to exploit Africa, and therefore it will give us strength to stand. Like whatever we decide, and then we say this is what we want, it will give us power to actually stand on our ground. Right now, the reason why we are suffering from this, yes, I know we have a problem with bad leadership, people who wants to work for themselves, but also we have to acknowledge that we do have a good leadership in Africa. So you can take an example in every single country that all these foreign powers have, and most of countries, for example, you can take Congo, all those francophone countries, right? When you see a foreign power in that country, most of the time those countries are not stable. So ask yourself why these countries are not stable. And you have peaceful movement, you have UN, you have all these different organizations that are there to keep the peace, but you don't see peace. For example, Congo is the richest country in the world, but it's the most poorest country right now. Not even poorest, but it's people are fighting there every single day. And yet they have a lot of international organization right there. What are they doing? What are they dealing with those crises? So it's a time for us to change our mentality, like our leaders and our people, to know that nobody is going to save Africa. There's no savior for Africa but Africans. We should be the one to save it. And the only way for us to do that is to unite. Because when we unite, we are stronger. Like if I stand alone, it's impossible to fight against all this colonial power. But when we are united, when we cooperate one another, therefore we can be able to cooperate with, let's say, Congo and South Africa, South Africa and Kenya. For example, we have seen right now South Africa and Kenya, they are merging their, airlines, to form one Pan-Africanist airline. These are kind of good examples that shows us, together we can. You don't have to form that alliance with somebody else from outside of Africa, while your neighbor here in Africa, they have the same thing. Why don't we come together? Why don't we stop competing against one another and start building a relationship to survive, building relationship to strive? Because that's the only thing that I see the way out from this. But it's very heartening to see that a leader of Africa, or someone honestly, instead of cooperating with the next leader, but we see each other as enemies within the continent. Like my country, it's hurtful.
My final question to you. Yes, I hear you loudly and clearly that we want foreign powers, European powers, peacekeepers, whatever they call themselves, out of Africa, because we can govern ourselves. But I think the one big obstacle for One Africa and all young people like you who have the right idea and the right mindset for the liberation of Africa is our corrupt leaders. We have way too many corrupt leaders throughout Africa, and they have bankrupted Africa as a whole. They are our problem. How are you going to tackle that? How are you going to tackle that?
It's really sad, but what I can say is corruption is everywhere, not only in Africa, but corruption is an issue in every single country in this world. But and one thing that I always talk about leadership, when Africans, we come together and we say no more to these kind of actions, right? Because as a leader, I always talk about servant leadership, that You become a leader to serve people. You are not there to be saved. But nowadays in Africa, if a leader do something, we actually clap hands for him that, oh, you did this. No, that's the reason why we choose you to be there, to work for us. We are the boss. So as a leader, you need to know that I'm here to serve my people. I'm here to make sure that my people are safe. My people are, are secured and their lives are safe. But most of people that we have, they're there to save themselves, to save their stomach. But also we have leaders who, they're there to save their people. So my call and what I'm trying to do every single day is to raise a generation that will understand that leadership, it's a service. It's a service to the public. It's a service to the people. And if you don't know, if you don't want to serve people, why are you becoming a leader? These days you have people who wants to become rich. Like if you want to become rich in Africa, become a leader. It's an easiest way to make money. But we have to raise a generation that will understand that, no, this is actually a difficult job. This is actually something that you put your life on the line because you're there to save your people. You're there to serve and to save your people. So it's, one step at a time. It's something that is really bothering me all the time when I think about all these, corrupted leaderships.
I'm glad to hear that we've got young people like you all around Africa who has a social conscience and standing up to do the right thing. I'm very proud of you. We pray for, long life to you and your Group 1 Africa to start making a difference, a meaningful difference for Africa, and to take Africa back from the colonialists. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and hopefully we will hook up again sometime soon. You go well, keep safe, and all the very best.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. And you too, keep safe. That was Mike Shavala. He is with One Africa, and he talks about conversations for a better Africa. He's also a podcaster and a founder of Swahili Nation and One Africa. What an amazing young man. Those are our leaders, true leaders of tomorrow, and we hope and pray many more like him come through the ranks and start making a meaningful difference in Africa and globally, inshallah. That brings me to the end of the show. Thank you indeed for being with us on the show this morning. A big thank you also to my hard-working producer, and that's you, Nasreen Naidu. Take care on the roads, and don't forget the COVID protocols. Till next week, Monday, it's time for me to sign off. Take care. Assalamu alaikum and Khuda Hafiz from me, Julie Ali.